It's already started, folks. As I've discussed in recent videos, all signs point to a blockbuster trade between the Phoenix Suns and Houston Rockets developing over the course of this offseason. But as Phoenix Suns fans know all too well, when it comes to blockbuster trades, especially now with a first-time GM coming out there into the mix, public negotiations, stuff getting leaked to the media, stuff getting fed to these B-list beat reporters, the A-list beat reporters coming out from these different teams. The public negotiations really start to pick up once one of these trades are negotiated out there in the offseason. And now the Houston Rockets, after getting just a heartbreaking loss out there in the postseason, Game 7, to the Golden State Warriors, and some interesting developments amongst other star players across the league, the Houston Rockets were feeling like they were losing leverage in these KD trade negotiations. So they leaked a lot of stuff to essentially jockey for position in terms of these trade negotiations. So we're going to break down these latest reports, why the Phoenix Suns should not feel worried about their trade package and their stance in terms of these Kevin Durant deals just because of these reports, and what we should expect from not just the Houston Rockets, but a bunch of teams trying to levy for Kevin Durant over the course of this offseason in the trade negotiations. Even though my stance still remains the same, I expect him to be a Houston Rocket if he's not with the Phoenix Suns at the start of next season. So lots of stuff to break down out here in this video. But before we do, folks, again, if you're part of the over 67% of our viewers that haven't hit the subscribe button just yet, and you want to stay up to date with everything going on with this Phoenix Suns team, you don't want to miss a single development as we continue to watch this whole puzzle piece of a Phoenix Suns offseason, puzzle board, whatever you want to call it, of a Phoenix Suns offseason play out. Make sure you guys hit that subscribe button so you don't miss a single thing that's going on with the Suns team. But let's dive into it, because I broke down in a recent vid about how the the Houston Rockets are in a spot where they really need to trade for Kevin Durant. They got knocked out there by the Golden State Warriors, a 2-7 seed upset, and they really struggled out there on the offensive end of the court. Everything else was working well for the Houston Rockets, but they could not put the ball in the hoop at the end. And there's no better guy out there in the league that put the ball in the hoop than Kevin Durant. So it makes sense in terms of the stars aligning for one of these trades going down. To summarize all the stuff that broke down in yesterday's vid, the other option that the Rockets have in terms of trade negotiations is the Milwaukee Bucks, and signs are starting to point to Giannis not actually getting dealt over the course of this offseason, despite the fact that, they had a generational flame out as well, and Damian Lillard now has a torn Achilles, so it's unlikely they're going to have any shot, even with Giannis on the team next year. And Giannis put gasoline on this fire with posting, win for Cream City post to his Instagram, essentially subliminally indicating, hey, I'm going to stay with the Milwaukee Bucks. I'm going to stay in this direction. So, we broke down how things are starting to fall completely into place for one of these blockbuster trades to happen with the Houston Rockets, the Phoenix Suns, alongside a bunch of other reports. And I'm going to break down why, because with this being the case, any smart organization, the Houston Rockets are a well-put-together organization. They do not want to lose any leverage whatsoever in these trade talks and these trade negotiations coming into this offseason. So they are going to start leaking information, trying to sway the narrative in terms of, moving things to play on their side of the field rather than the Phoenix Suns side of the field. And essentially, this is where a lot of these new reports come out. So Brett Siegel has dropped that the Rockets league sources say did not see themselves as a championship threat. Not even after snagging the West number 2 seed, they understand that the Thunder, while even younger, are farther along in their chase for contention. Yet, much like Oklahoma City last season, Houston has been planning to use this entire season, especially the playoffs, to evaluate a roster filled with recent lottery picks. This is the first part, because the more stuff direct to the Suns will be, the more directly connected thing. But this first comment from this report seems like a spoon-fed thing from the Houston Rockets front office saying, despite the fact we're a 2 seed, we didn't think we were going to win a championship. We didn't think we were going to be there. This is all a development year, yada, yada, yada. To set out the narrative that, hey, the Rockets, we're all good. We are feeling desperate. We are feeling worried about our current spot, our current position in the Western Conference. No world is that. This was all going as a plan. So, I like that initial preface, but essentially the plan was always to capitalize on the crucible of the postseason for crucial data collection before deciding what major swings, if any, to take this off season. It was strongly conveyed to the Steinline that going into the playoffs that a Houston trade pursuit of Kevin Durant became even less likely than previously thought. And yes, that makes more sense in terms of going into the postseason because, the Houston Rockets come in and be like, hey, our team led by, KD or Fred VanVleet or any of these dudes, Jalen Green, this group of guys, if they could come in to win a championship, hey, or if they're close so they make a push, sweet, that makes a ton of sense for this team to just keep their core together. But of course, they got knocked out in the first round. It didn't end up working. There was a lot of messy stuff going around despite all the talent they have on their roster. So, that's something the Houston Rockets, again, it's fitting that whole narrative. And then here's where the more direct Phoenix Suns link ends up coming into play, and people are running with this headline. The Suns naturally want the Rockets to want the Suns naturally want the Rockets to trade for Kevin Durant. There's a spelling mistake in that article. According to league sources, they did try to engage them in Durant dialogue before the February 6th trade deadline. It makes total sense for Phoenix given the fact that Houston has the swap rights and control of the Suns' first-round pick this June, again in 27 and again in 29. But the Rockets passed on the concept then and remain resistant to entertaining the idea of surrendering premium assets in a trade for a 36-year-old with one season left on his current contract. So this is the thing everyone's running with in terms of, hey, there's no world KD's going to the Rockets now. They're saying all this. They're jockeying for we see this every time one of these blockbuster trades go down, every time that one of these deals, these talks start circulating, especially when it's not, one of those imminent moves. Trade deadlines and stuff, it's a shorter time window. There's less time for narratives to marinate and, these developments to seep into a lot of these organizations. During the offseason, especially when the playoffs are still on the go, Houston is going to do everything they can to regain as much leverage as possible in any of these trade negotiations. So that's kind of what they're leaking to Brett Siegel here now at this point. I'll break down the last, essentially part of this. The Suns naturally want the Rockets to want Durant, according to league sources, and they try to gauge, as we saw on this one. I'm bringing up the same thing, but basically that's what's coming out from Brett Siegel. I thought I had a third screenshot there, but the Suns have essentially played a very different game in terms of their reports. Dwayne Rankin of Arizona Sports came out and said that regaining 3 first-round picks and a young player as a part of a multi-team deal tied to getting under the second apron. So that's the goal. That's the mission to return, for a Kevin Durant trade. So we've heard these reports before. And Siegel also mentioned that, here's the other Siegel report, that Matt Ishbia is the owner of the Phoenix Suns, and the Suns will not accept less value in any trade involving Kevin Durant that they initially sent out to get him, sources have said. The Suns understand that, hey, with the current squad, with the current group that they have and how valuable Kevin Durant still is a basketball player, if they are sending him to another team, they are putting them immediately into championship contention, and that deserves a high price tag. So that's been the stance of the Phoenix Suns. They have already made their statements in their public trade negotiation windows and things like that, and as they should, because Kevin Durant is still a very valuable basketball player. 27 points, 6 rebounds, 4 assists, all these types of things. But the last point that I'm going to make in terms of why I don't believe that any Suns fan should be worried about, there's going to be no market for KD, there's going to be no this, there's going to be no that. Leading into the playoffs, the guy that's most locked in, that's the most insider, that is going to be thrown out, the most credible. Again, Woj is a little bit more had a higher hit rate, but Woj is no longer in the NBA or covering NBA content and stuff. Shams Charania dropped this, essentially revealing that there's reportedly a level of mutual interest between the Phoenix Suns forward Kevin Durant and the Houston Rockets. And essentially in his quote in the actual video, he said, giving this breakdown. And when people are saying, it's over, this is cope, this is this, point them to this timestamp in the video. This Shams report. The Houston Rockets have that mutual interest in Kevin Durant, and Shams directly stated that if they have a first-round flame-out, if they don't do well out there in the postseason, then this trade becomes even more likely. So Shams is saying this. There's just public negotiations. There's jockeying around out there in terms of this stuff coming from Brett Siegel, coming from these other reporters, and we should expect a ton of this in the coming weeks from the Suns side, from the Rockets side, from the Timberwolves side if they get knocked out early. We should expect this from any teams that are out there in the mix for Kevin Durant. So let me know what you guys think about all these updates. Is this just a budget cope by me in terms of my stance on this opinion, or are you buying that KD Rockets trade is coming down? Let me know in the comment section down below. You guys are the best thing as far as subscribe to the channel if you guys haven't already. Anyways, I'm signing out. Cheers.